Hello, and thanks for joining us for this edition of the Newsfeed. I'm Sean Lyons. For the past few years, the entire United States has been facing labor shortages. With more on how this shortage is impacting Blacksburg and the surrounding cities, here is Newsfeed reporter Tatiana Walker.
The coronavirus pandemic caused a major disruption in America's labor force. In fact, in 2021, more than 47 million workers quit their jobs to seek an improved work-life balance, flexibility, and increased compensation. In the New River Valley, the shortage also means stores have to work around the already limited schedules of the few employees they do have.
The labor shortage for this store in particular has affected us in a couple of different ways. For example, there's a lot of college students and teenagers, like high schoolers, who have other things going on in their life that's not just work and school.
Stores around Blacksburg, Christiansburg, and the rest of the New River Valley have had a tough time getting workers in to cover their schedules. Food establishments such as Papa John's are unable to deliver because they do not have delivery drivers, and retail stores are having to stay closed or even work odd hours to keep their stores running.
There was like a whole weekend where all the other management team was either sick or out of town, like they already planned their vacation out, so like they've been gone. And so during that weekend, I was completely here by myself from open to close for like 4 days in a row.
The obvious reason for the labor shortage would be the coronavirus pandemic, which was supercharged by the Omicron strain. However, another contributing factor that most workers agree on is that some businesses simply do not pay enough to cover the work they are required to do, despite minimum wage in Virginia being $11 an hour. Reporting for the Newsfeed, I'm Tatiana Walker.
The cost of living has risen over the years, especially in Virginia. People online are outraged that Virginia Tech graduate students are using food stamps to get by, given the work they do on campus. Graduate students play an essential role at Virginia Tech. Students argue their stipend is not enough to fully cover the cost of living. A cost of living report by the Graduate Student Assembly says in 2020, the average cost of living for grad students was $2,136. The average stipend was $2,156, realistically leaving students with $20 left over. Currently, the Graduate Student Assembly is asking for at least a $3,800 raise to account for outside and unexpected expenses. Jack Leff, a student a part of the efforts to make this change, explains the issue at hand.
We get compensated $19,000 a year, which is well below the cost of living for Blacksburg, which is around $32,000 a year. But we are hopeful that we can get the stipend compensation sufficient to meet cost of living for the area because grad students are starving.
Many students have come together to combat this issue as graduate students generate a lot of revenue for the university. As the situation continues, a resolution won't be made until later in the year. Students are hopeful the university will come to a resolution. The Federal Food and Drug Administration has recently recalled certain baby formula, ice cream products, and even some frozen food. Many families rely on food pantries to not go hungry, but what happens when an item is recalled in a food pantry? Newsfeed reporter Melissa Vergara has more in this next story.
Food pantries are essential in the New River Valley and are a way for the community to give back to those in need. Food donation centers like Micah's Backpacks and Interfaith Food Pantries serve about 250 families and 300 students every week. They're also a part of a nonprofit organization called Feeding America, which is a nationwide network of more than 200 food banks. When the Federal Food and Drug Administration recalls an item because of possible food contamination or mislabeling, Micah's Backpacks and the Interfaith Food Pantry are one of many food donation centers here in the New River Valley. Being members of Feeding America means one person on the leadership team has to be certified in a Serve Safe program, in which they go through these safety protocols. John Stramiello, director of Micah's Backpack, tells us what he does to ensure safety.
Follow all the state and federal guidelines for handling food. All the food is always kept up off the floor. Dates are always checked. We always rotate our food. We work with non-perishable foods, so there's really not an issue with FDA. We don't do meats or refrigerated items.
Food pantries across the New River Valley usually ask donors to donate non-perishable foods. Non-perishable foods will have a longer lasting impact because each can usually has a 5-year shelf life. Some pantries like Interfaith have perishable items in which they have meats and different types of dairy. Andrea Muscatello, director of Interfaith Food Pantry, says.
We've had a couple situations like that, and ordinarily, once we're notified of a recall, then we go through our stock and look for anything that might match the nature of the recall.
These foods are safely thrown away to avoid risk of cross-contamination, and people wanting to volunteer can go to their website for more information. Most pantries are always looking for volunteers. Clubs and organizations like fraternities and sororities are usually helping food donation centers. People wanting to volunteer can go on the specific food pantry website for information or call the pantries directly. I'm Melissa Vergara reporting for the Newsfeed.
Thanks, Melissa. Just ahead on the newsfeed, VIVA Market opens up in Johnson Hall on Virginia Tech's campus. This grab-and-go style dining hall is hoping to reduce crowd levels at other dining halls. That story is coming up next. And stick around to hear how Virginia Tech is going back to normal spring break. That story and more after this break.
What are you doing in there?
What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Welcome back to the newsfeed. I'm Sean Lyons. There is a new grab-and-go dining center on campus at Virginia Tech called VIVA Market. The market opened up for Hokies to enjoy on February 8th. The much-needed additional dining hall will hopefully cut down on overall wait times, but will this put a strain on dining services employees? Newsfeed reporter Michaela Shelton joins us with more on this story.
Virginia Tech is known for its long wait times in dining halls, but will VIVA Market help to cut down on some of these wait times? I spoke with Associate Director for Dining Services, Brandon Hendricks, and here's what he had to say.
I would say yes, but not to the impact that we'll want to see when we bring on another dining center. So if you look at the map of campus, where VIVA is currently located, I don't want to say it's a food desert, but there is no other dining service operations in that part of the academic portion of campus. So we know that there's a need there.
Grace Swift, student at Virginia Tech, also thinks there still needs to be an additional dining hall on the academic side of campus.
Yeah, I would say we should need a new one because there's still you go to Qdoba or something like that, and even Grubhub, it's 45-minute waits a lot of the time.
However, VIVA Market isn't as crowded as the other dining halls since it is grab and go.
I don't know that it's cutting down with the lines at other dining halls, but it is still pretty helpful in getting food in a place that's not as crowded. So that's pretty good.
VIVA Market is open from 7:30 a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Monday through Thursdays and 7:30 in the morning to 5 at night on Fridays. Reporting for the Newsfeed, I'm Michaela Shelton.
VIVA Market is not the only new thing on VT's campus. Virginia Tech has begun construction on the new Global Analytics and Business Complex for the Pamplin School of Business. The complex's first building is nearing completion on the corner of Price's Fork and West Campus Drive. Newsfeed reporter Matt Scopa has more on the complex's development.
Labeled GBAC by those involved, the new complex will provide students and faculty with new offices, classrooms, and living spaces, with 2 new academic buildings and 2 new residence halls planned for construction. Pamplin School of Business faculty Donna Werdelich gave some perspective on the new complex.
It is a complex that will really bring together areas and focuses of business, science, engineering to collaborate, to really reflect the real world.
Funding for the complex stems from multiple sources, with private donations and state-appropriated money assisting with the design and construction of the complex.
It's a combination of things, but we couldn't have done it without the alumni and companies that are supporting us. Companies like EY, KPMG, Deloitte, the Marriott Foundation. All of them have been really helpful and really instrumental.
Dean of the Pamplin College of Business, Robert T. Summercross, provided insight into the complex and how it will benefit the Virginia Tech community.
The learning experience itself will be better. It's going to be a real showcase both in terms of design and construction, and so it's going to help us attract students and faculty and staff to Virginia Tech. In a lot of ways it's going to help.
The first GBAC building is scheduled for completion for the summer of 2023, with the entire complex scheduled for conclusion around 2025. If you'd like to read more about GBAC, search for the Global Analytics and Business Complex on the Pamplin School of Business website. Reporting from the newsfeed, I'm Matt Scopa.
2022 spring break is coming up fast for Virginia Tech students. This will be the first time students have a week-long spring break since Virginia Tech enacted last year's spring break days. Last year, Virginia Tech students' spring break was split up among each day of the school week throughout multiple weeks in the spring semester. According to a VTX article covering the change, last year's spring break days were created to, quote, discourage travel that may increase the risk of contracting or transmitting COVID-19 from one area to another, unquote. However, some students were not pleased at the outcome of that spring break.
I don't even remember having them. I know we weren't allowed to have things assigned over those days, but things were just kind of assigned right before, right after. Never really felt to me like they were days off.
Nonetheless, students are hopeful and excited for this year's spring break. Virginia Tech's academic calendar states that this year's spring break occurs from March 5th to March 13th. That will wrap up this edition of the Newsfeed. If you have a story idea for the Newsfeed, let us know. Send us an email at thenewsfeednrv@gmail.com. And as always, you can also connect with the Newsfeed on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching. I'm Sean Lyons.